Hey crafty friends, it's Jeannie for Ellen Hudson. Today we'll be playing with some of the new release products from Essentials by Ellen for a fun interactive card. The stamp sets that I'll be using is the Snow Angels, Snow Much Fun, and Christmas Town stamp sets, along with the Push Me Pull You dies, which I forgot to show, but you'll see later on in this video. For this card, I decided that I wanted to map this out ahead of time, and it really helped. You don't see the mapping out process, but it is super helpful for the interactive elements of the Push Me Pull You dies. For a more in-depth tutorial on these particular dies, there's a video on the Ellen Hudson YouTube channel that I will have linked down below in case you're interested. The Christmas Town stamp sets are a layering set comprising of 2 pieces for each element. For the trees, you can stamp out the little trunk and then you'll stamp out the actual tree, and for the houses you can stamp the main part of the house and then the roof. So I opted to use 2 different colors. I am using some Pink Fresh Studio inks, which I will have all listed down below. I can't remember them on the top of my head. And for my middle house, I'm just going to go and stamp in this really pretty light purple and then go with darker purple for the roof. I also decided that it looked a little plain with just the 2 trees, so I did some lazy masking with some Eclipse masking paper so I could stamp some trees right behind the houses, and I thought that it just gave more interest to this little small scene. As you saw in the picture at the beginning of the video, it is of 2 girls who are ice skating. I'm using the ice skater from Snow Much Fun. She's going to be the focus of the Push Me Pull You dies, where there will be the 2 ice skaters skating back and forth, and since there's only one image of this girl, I had to do a mirror image of her. I grabbed a piece of plastic from wrapping in my trash, and that little piece was all I needed. I stamped directly on the piece of plastic and then I flipped it over and gently rubbed it on my cardstock. You'll see that the impression isn't great, but I didn't mind having to draw in that image since it was pretty simple. Once I finished doing that, I went ahead and colored her up very quickly. Didn't do anything special because the image is pretty small. For the die cutting, I was able to die cut the original image, but for the reverse image, it was a little tricky because I had to hold it up to the light and put the die on the back of my image. I also placed a piece of cardstock on top so I would have a smooth die cut, since sometimes the texture of the plates transfers to your die cuts. So I was so happy with how this turned out, and now I have 2 ice skaters facing each other. For this particular card, I marked off at 3 1/4 inch from the bottom of my card, and then I cut down a piece of blue cardstock to match at 3 1/4 inch by 4 1/4, which will sit at the bottom of my card. I also marked off 1/2 inch at the bottom of my card panel and placed the blue right on top of my main panel and used the notch die from the Push Me Pull You die set to cut out that notch together so it would be aligned up perfectly. Then I went ahead and die cut my pull tab twice, mainly because I wanted it to be very sturdy. I only have 80-pound cardstock on hand, and for the pull tab, you'll be using it to pull back and forth, so you want to make sure that it is sturdy. So next, I wanted to use my die that creates the slits, and I'll be using the smaller one since I am doing a vertical card. I will line it up with the notch because that is where the pull tab will lie down. I'm using a T-ruler to help make sure that I'm taping it down straight, and I'll also use the die cut for the small slot right under the mark I made for the 3 1/4 inch mark, and I'll go ahead and die cut that out, carefully removing the dies because I have that washi, so I don't want it to rip my paper at all. For the blue panel, I made a mark at 1 inch from the top, and I'll die cut that out for the slot, and I knew that the ice skater would sit perfectly right there. For this interactive element to work, I used a strip of page protector. It's a sheet protector, or you can use any type of plastic that you have on hand. You can even cut up a plastic bag. So I cut it at about 3/8 inch, and I'll slip it through the slots, leaving enough give so it can move back and forth freely. Then I'll use double-sided adhesive to adhere the pieces together and cut off any of the excess. You want the adhesive on the back of the card sitting on the right-hand side so it can move to the left as you pull the tab. So you just want to make sure that the adhesive is moving because it kind of acts as a stopper as well. So once I have that ready, I'll always keep playing with this just to make sure that it will work. You will also need 2 strips of acetate. I cut mine at 3/8 inch, and it doesn't matter how long it is because you can always trim it down later. For the first piece of acetate, you want to adhere it to the back of the card on the little sheet protector on the right hand side. And for the second piece of acetate, you want to flip it back over and adhere it to the right hand side of the card as well. So it will move back and forth. And as you play with it, you'll understand how the elements are moving. So you'll see me playing with it multiple times just to make sure everything's right. So I'm going to work on my stamping of my sentiment. I know that I'll be popping the main panel on foam, so I want to make sure I stamp it out first. I'm using the sentiments from the Snow Angels. So I put one on the pull tab because it'll be a fun surprise when you pull it out, and the main sentiment on the blue panel. Now let's put foam tape on the back of the card. First, you want to slide the acetate piece in the back through the slot so you can see it in the front. And that's because you want to put foam tape on the top portion of the card, and then you'll line up the pull tab where the notch is, and I just hold it as a placeholder as I put foam on the bottom of that area and then on the 2 sides of the card. Then for the pull tab, I'll add double-sided adhesive and line it up with the card. Then I'll go ahead and flip the card over, and then I'll also add foam tape on the bottom portion of the card underneath where the page protector is, and then on the 2 sides of the card. Remember, you don't want to put anything in the space where the acetate pieces will be moving back and forth because you don't want them to be blocked. Now we want to place the blue panel on top of the bottom of the card, and you'll slide the acetate piece that is in the front through the slot. And I love using my Misty to make sure everything is lined up. So I'll remove the mouse pad and line it up, carefully removing the release paper from the foam, and then everything is lined up perfectly. The last part of this card is to add the ice skaters. They'll go right on top of the moving acetate pieces. And of course, like the rest of my card, I'm using double-sided adhesive, and I place the girl in pink first on the bottom portion of the slot, and I will trim off any excess acetate on the top of her head, and I'll repeat the same steps with the girl in purple. This card comes together so perfectly, and I love it so much. You can leave the card as is, but I couldn't help but think that the background looked a bit plain as I was playing with the little girls. I decided that I wanted to go ahead and use Copic markers to add additional color. So I used a very light blue to create the look of snow grounding the houses and the trees. So I just was moving them back and forth, and this is something I probably should have done prior to adding the little girls. I'm gonna go in with a yellow marker for the windows, and here I debated back and forth. I wanted a bit of contrast for the sky, and I decided to make it a nighttime sky because it'll just add that extra look of contrast. So I'm going in carefully with a blue Copic marker and coloring up around the houses and the trees. And I wouldn't have used die cuts here because I just wouldn't risk this ice skater snagging on those die cuts. And once I finish coloring everything up in the background, I actually go in with a white gel pen just to add some stars. And I think that that is the perfect element to finish off this card. There you have it, a fun interactive card where you can pull the tab and the ice skaters will skate back and forth. And once you get everything mapped out, it's really easy to put these elements together for a fun card. And you even get a surprise sentiment when you pull the tab. I hope you enjoyed this video, and be sure to tag Ellen Hudson if you decide to recreate this card. Have a great day, and I will see you guys next time with another video. Bye!